Welcome to the Thrive with OMU Podcast, where each week I'll chat with an amazing entrepreneur on their growth journey. They'll be sharing this with us to help and encourage us to take that bold step. Hello, everyone. With me here today is Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Thank you for coming on our podcast today.
Hi, it's great to be here.
How are you?
Doing well, yeah. Enjoying summertime here where I'm at, and yeah.
Awesome. And where is that?
That would be Montana, United States. Yeah.
And it's all nice and warm.
Yes, it's warm where we are. We have extreme cold winters and hot summers.
Nice. So who is Jackie? I'm sure my listeners want to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Jackie Dighans, mom of 10 children. I'm a covenant life coach, which just means I'm a faith-based life coach. And I've just been through some stuff. I've been married for 30 years. When I say I have 10 children, they're all biological, no twins. And so just had a baby every other year for 20 years and just one at a time. And so I'm thankful. I look back on that journey and
I am thankful. I am thankful for you as well because it's not easy.
No, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, very thankful to be where I'm at, and a lot of the journey was a blur in some of it because I was up a lot at night.
I know you must have been up for 20 years of your life.
Yeah, basically.
So now this is a bit personal and it's okay if you don't want to answer it. I'm just curious, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having 10. Actually, where my husband comes from, a woman that has 11 children is celebrated. There's actually a ceremony for her. So it's a huge ceremony and she's recognized. So it's not at all strange to me. So what I want to ask is, when you were getting married, did you set out to have 10 children or it just happened?
Right. No, I didn't set out to have 10 children. I don't remember us really discussing how many children we wanted. I was from a family of 4 kids. My husband was a family of 3 kids. And so I think I just assumed that we'd have something like that, you know. But when I was overwhelmed with 3 children, I feel that we were called to raise a large family. I didn't know how many that would be, but I asked my husband what he thought, and he said, okay, so we decided we would just go one at a time. And that's what we did till we reached 10.
That's a very bold step. So how old is the oldest now and how old is the youngest?
The oldest is 26. The youngest is 8 years old.
Wow. It must be an interesting, I'm sure there's never a dull moment at home.
No, there's not. There's constant activity and kids coming and going and kids calling and visiting, you know, so it's fun. We also have 4 grandchildren, and 1 more on the way. So
congratulations. I was just going to say that you look amazing for a mother of 10.
Oh, thank you. Well, I always say they kept me young. Either I look young or I would probably look like I was barely making it, you know.
So tell me, how has the journey been raising 10 kids and getting to where you are today?
Yeah, so it was a journey of growth through the trials, right? Instead of wishing the hard times away, I decided to embrace them and grow through them. So I remember the time when I had around 6 kids at the house and I was overwhelmed. I had lots of laundry to do. I had chores, all the household things plus homeschooling them. And I was overwhelmed and I was like, okay, God, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm sitting there with tears running down my face. And I looked up at this verse on my wall and it said, unless the Lord build the house, those who build it labor in vain.
Thing.
That's not, I didn't want to get to the end of my journey having done it in vain. You know what I mean? Just
Mhm.
in a spot of just toiling over my own plans and so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let you do this and I'll just take the steps, right? And so that's what I did. Just I was given wisdom in efficiency in my home and wisdom with raising the children and how to discipline them and train them. And it,
Raising and private schooling, that one struck me. You actually private schooled all 10 of them?
yes, I had them homeschooling up until about 5 or 6 years
Yes,
ago.
sorry, homeschooling, yeah.
Yeah, homeschooling. Then I put the seven of them in school. And that was a
Wow.
whole switch of a lifestyle too, doing that because we were so used to doing all the chores together and just everyone being around. And then it all switched. And so just I was learning to be flexible and flow in life rather than fighting against what was happening.
Wow. So, I mean, you mentioned trials. What sort of trials? I mean, we all go through trials, certainly.
Hmm.
But when you specifically mentioned trials, what kind of trials were these?
Yeah. So one in particular was when we had 10 children in the home, or maybe I was pregnant with my 10th, just having her. And my husband was going through a breakdown, like a breakdown depression season.
Mhm.
And it was just a difficult season of, God, what do I do? Our family was safe as far as he wasn't abusive in any way physically, but emotionally and mentally he was struggling. And I knew that wasn't a good spot for our family to stay for very long, right? But I was just asking God, what do I do here? And at one point I heard just pack your bag. And I'm thinking, I'm homeschooling and I have 10 children, or I'm pregnant with my 10th, and I don't want to leave the family, or I don't want a divorce, but I realized I just needed to take that one simple step. It was just pack your bag. I didn't
Wow.
have to create all the drama around what it could mean, right? And so that's what I did is I packed my bag. My husband had taken the children actually to church that morning because we were a church going family, and I stayed back, and when they got home I had my bag packed. And my husband asked, "So what are you doing?" And I said, "I can't live this way anymore."
My goodness.
Yeah, and so after a little bit of a conversation, he said, "No, I'll go." So then he left just for a few nights. We had a place that was out of town that had heat and lights. There was no running water or sewer there, but he was able to go for a few nights and just get refreshed or whatever he needed. And then it got our marriage on a track and him on a track of restoration, just out of that obedient step of what I was hearing in my heart, of what to do. Because otherwise,
So you guys are not divorced.
we aren't divorced.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I know, it never went that far, but he was.
Jackie, we need to change the way you tell this story
Oh,
because I was staring at you and I was like, she's going to have to explain to me how on earth she heard from God and God asked her to divorce out. But you see what happens to us. We actually don't listen actively because you didn't say divorce. You didn't even use the word separated. You
yeah.
just said leave. And maybe if I had asked how long or leave to where, I didn't even ask and I was already building stories. And I'm sure that's what we do with other things other things that we hear. Oh my goodness. Okay,
Exactly.
now I'm happy and I'm ready to hear the rest
Well,
of it.
but you know what's funny? It's funny that you said that God wouldn't tell you to divorce, which he didn't, of course. It was just take this step, pack your bag. That was
Yeah,
the
okay, well,
instruction.
I really am not in a position to say God wouldn't or God will, but
Right.
because of what the scripture says, if you tell me God did, I would need to see something that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or, but I know that out of the blues, he's just not going to tell you to divorce your husband with 10 children and, destabilize 10 children.
Right. But that was my thought when I heard that in my spirit too, like, you want me to pack my bag?
But
What?
you were just being obedient.
Yeah.
That's such a good testimony because you weren't arguing. It didn't seem like, it didn't seem logical. It didn't seem comfortable. It didn't,
Right.
you couldn't see the end and you just simply obeyed.
Yeah, just obeyed. And the way what I related that to was when in the Old Testament of the Bible, God asked Abraham to
Absolutely.
sacrifice.
Absolutely. That's
And
exactly what I thought of.
yeah, and he just took the steps of obedience, knowing that God was good and he would work it out for them, right? So that's what I related that step to. I'm like, okay, I will. And then it got us on a road of restoration. But about a year or so after that, my husband was taken out of our home for about a year and a half, not fully, but gone more than he was home during that time for work. Okay.
Okay.
And it allowed him, even though it was one of the most difficult times in my life to be, I had 7 kids at home at that time, newly to the public school system. I was also going back to school. But what it did for us was it created a space for my husband to get refreshed,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
and it allowed myself and the children to miss him, to then be
Mhm.
happy to see him when he would come home.
Yeah.
So I was thankful for that season, even though it wasn't easy. I remember one time during that season when he was gone, he was still fairly negative when I would talk to him on the phone. And I remember one night I said, I'm not going to be able to talk to you. You've got to figure out what's going on, because my kids at home were struggling as well. They were depressed that their dad wasn't home. They were struggling in the new school system and figuring
Yeah, it was a lot of
all that.
things going on at the same time.
Yeah. And so I remember then just letting him go that way, just like, okay, you figure it out. I love you. I'm here. but figure out what you want in life kind of thing. And I remember when I think I was sitting on the floor in my bedroom, and I had this vision of a dock, okay, and I was on it. It was one that was waving with the water. And I was like, God, it is getting very unstable here. I feel like I have nothing physical to hold on to anymore. And because I had let go of the need for my children, like as far as if they disobeyed, I wasn't on a roller coaster of, oh no, they don't love me, or, so I let go of emotion around my children. And then I let go of my husband and just like, I'm okay with or without you, right? During that season when he was not there in a good way and was struggling. And then I had never held on to physical things as far as my house or my car or whatever. That wasn't important to me. And so as I was sitting there feeling like, I feel like I have nothing physical to hold on to, it was like God said to me, that's exactly where I want you. And now I'm going to have you step off the dock onto the water. And I was like, well, the way I'm feeling right now, I feel like I'm going to fall off this dock. So it won't matter if I'm in the water, But when I just in this vision, when I stepped off, it was like I had stepped onto my rock, my firm foundation. And I was living in Christ and not just like a step in the world and a step, like holding on to physical things.
Mhm.
And it's a much more stable place there.
Wow.
And so that's what allowed me to carry through the rest of the year that he was gone, and to then rise up into becoming a coach. And I'm an author of a couple books now as well.
Where
And
where do you find the time?
it just, it wasn't hard because the messages that I was writing down were just flowing out, because it was my
Where do you
story.
find time to sit down and get the message? Oh my
It was
God.
just, given as I was walking through life. It's part of that, like I started out with, choosing growth in the trials rather than being weighed down by all
Yeah.
the negative, which I did for a
And
season.
that's very important.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
is very important. That is very important. How, I mean, I know that raising children can be challenging, whether it's one child, two, three, four, five, it's a challenge. Challenge is a challenge. Now with 10, I mean, for me, that's 10 challenges. you
Yeah.
know, and what would having heard your story and the way you've gone through it and come out successful,
Mhm.
what tips would you give anyone who is facing, I mean, not a lot of people have 10 children, so, but going through the challenges, which is why I said, irrespective, a challenge is a challenge.
Yeah.
Now, how did you stay positive? How did you, because I mean, there are a lot of Christians, there are a lot of believers out there that when they're faced with challenge, it's also a grace to actually even listen or listen and hear,
Mhm.
and it's not because you don't know or you've never heard it, but it's, and then obeying, even I mean, the best Christians that I know in my own book,
Mhm.
saying to them, pack your stuff and leave. I mean, if anyone said that to me, or if anyone said God has told me that, or if I think God has told me that, I probably would say something like, okay, wait, let me put my things together. I don't know. I mean, and that's me being the most obedient. I don't know that I'll just go and pack some stuff and up and go. So what tips would you give anyone really?
Yeah, well, I want to share just a little bit more of the story. Right when my right before or right around the time that my husband was went into a breakdown, I was on the verge of grand mal seizure. Okay, I had gone to a naturopathic doctor and I had been feeling kind of spinny and I didn't know what was wrong. And so she said, when I got in there, she said, when you came in, you were on the verge of a grand mal seizure. And she could tell it by taking my pulses. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, that explains it, why I'd been feeling. So when I got back home, because this doctor was about an hour away, I didn't feel like I was supposed to go into another type of a doctor to get medicine. And this doctor that I had seen got sick and closed her practice. But what I did feel like I was supposed to do with the 10 kids at the home, right? I was to go lay down if I felt spinning because it was to a point where I needed to go lay down or do something because it wasn't something I could just walk through then. And I would pray in the spirit and I would say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. By your
Yeah.
stripes I am healed. And I knew that if I didn't relax my mind and not like let go of all worry, anxiety, fear, that I was not going to get well, right? And
Yeah.
so during that time I just like quit worrying, right? I just quit going over and over stuff in my mind. And after about 2 weeks of laying down for maybe a couple times a day for about a half an hour or so, I didn't write it down, but it was something like that. I didn't have to lay down anymore. And I know that I was healed. It wasn't completely, the spinning wasn't completely gone, but it was enough that I didn't have to lay down. So, what some tips that I would give is that so often we create drama around what's going on. Instead of just the thing, we think about it and we create just drama about what's happening. But what if the things that we're going through, the purpose is for growth, right? That's why we're going through them. So that, like it says in James 1, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials. Well, I asked myself previous, like, how can I think this is good?
Absolutely.
Yeah, my dad was in a car accident when I was 12 and killed. My sister and her husband both passed away of cancer when I was in my late 20s.
Wow.
And and then, so I had some things happen. I'm like, God, you say to consider it joy when we go through things. How and why? Why, you know? So considering it pure joy would be obeying that, right? Just, okay, I'm going to consider this joy. I don't know why. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but why can we consider it joy? It's because, which it says next, the testing of your faith will produce patience, making you mature and complete. So the question is, will I let this trial that is testing me, that wants to pull me down into depression or into anger or into anxiety, and, you know, will I let it produce patience in me, persevere through it, right? And then rise up in it? Because I knew, this is what I knew, I was gonna face a trial again. And I didn't want to go through it the same way. Like,
Mm.
I didn't want to keep struggling in life that way. And so I was like, I don't want to go through the same thing or similar thing the same way again. So I wanted to grow. And so the next time something came up, which it will, it would be less painful. I would have more strength to go through it, right? And so that's just the main tip, is just like, what if we can embrace it, see what opportunities there are in it, see what's like, what do I need to learn, what do the people involved need to learn, whatever, so that
Wow.
we're not.
You are the real superwoman.
I don't know about that, but I'm
You
working
are the
on
real
it. Like,
superwoman. Oh, wow. 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 This has been an amazing time, Jackie. So now you work with just women?
Either women or men, helping them rise up in alignment with the Word of God so that they can live the lives that God had planned for us. You know, the enemy wants us to wallow down in the depression, in the anger, in the spot, of that trial, but it's for our growth. And so that's what I do. I help people throw off the weights, throw off things that are weighing them down, keeping them stuck, so that then they can get to the next thing that they're called to.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jackie. I have learned a lot speaking with you today. I have God forgive me, I have absolutely no reason to complain. And I need to go and learn obedience.
It's been amazing talking with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, you certainly want to connect with Jackie. I'm sure that her links will be in the comment section. Thank you, and I'm out. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thrive with OMU Podcast. This is your host, OMU Obilo.